fire at the oil depot near Kiev. I would like to invite the Minister of Environment and Natural Resources of Ukraine, Igor Shevchenko. Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. Thank you for coming to listen about the information on fire and its consequences. I would like to explain it more clearly, because now in mass media there's a lot of some panic type of information on the one hand. On the other hand, the not true information about the participation of the Ministry of Natural Resources and my personal participation in liquidation of this fire. First of all, I would like to say that the extinguishing of fire is at the end almost. There's some flare, but the situation is under control, it's stabilized, and in the nearest future the fire will be extinguished completely. As to environmental contamination impact on the environment of the fire, the photographs were just striking. The smoke and the pictures caused some panic, but I would like to ensure you that despite such pictures, the impact on the environment is not disastrous. The volume of the refinery products that were burnt is not that big to talk about some disastrous consequences. There is definitely some harm for the environment, especially the territories which are in the epicenter of the fire. All these territories are to be recultivated, deactivated, the soil and the water. But talking about the adjacent villages and adjacent territories, there is no serious threat for the life and the health of people. It's good that the time when the fire was there, when there was no rain, there were no precipitations, and during that time when there were no precipitations, all that smoke was dissolved in the air, and the concentration of harmful substances is very low. Now, even if now there is a rain, there will be no risk. Of course, we cannot say that there's no problem at all, but the harm to the environment is insignificant compared to what is being mentioned by some pseudo-ecologists. As of yesterday, 11:30, the level of concentration of contamination was not detected. So everything is under control. But now, on participation of the Ministry of Ecology in this process, first of all, we can feel that people and journalists as well do not understand what are the powers of different authorities. First of all, the fire started, and the State Agency on Emergency Situations is responsible for that. Our people, even the representatives of ecology inspection, were not allowed to go to the place of fire, and that's correct, because it was a dangerous zone. First days we could not do anything there. We could not even take samples of soil and water. Now talking about powers, about the air, the measurements of air are done by the sanitary inspection, not by the State Ecology Service, which is subordinate to the Ministry of Nature. The state sanitary inspection, which is under the ministry, they are under us, and they were doing it. Unfortunately, the communication between the state bodies is not very efficient today, and even we had to get this information with difficulties. What are we responsible for? The State Environmental Inspection is water and soil. On the 8th, the fire started in the evening, but on the 10th of June, our specialists were there. The chief of the State Ecological Inspection was there. The head of the Kiev Ecological Inspection was there. The laboratory went there. That took samples of water and soil where possible, and we are doing the exam and we have not detected any serious contamination. We cannot get to the place of fire. The firemen do not allow us to go there. As soon as we are allowed to enter the territory of the base where the fire was, we will take samples of water and soil on this territory. And then we can be talking about some, we can quote some figures, we can mention some specific results of assessment of the impact on the environment on this territory. Myself personally, on the 12th, on Friday, I visited the place of the fire. Before that, there was nothing for me to do there. Some politicians were saying I was not there. For example, Leshko said that. This is absolutely not true. On the 12th of June, I went there, not because the Prime Minister told me to go there, but I was planning to go there that day because in the morning at 9 o'clock on Friday, the fire was extinguished, and I was planning after the Cabinet of Ministers to go there, and I did so. I had an emergency meeting there with the heads of ecological inspection and head of the staff on liquidating of the fire. We heard what the situation is. We realized that there's a leaking of the refinery products. There's some pool where all these refinery products are going, and it's not isolated, and this is to be done now. We need to deactivate all the grounds and the soil and water. And we now asking the companies which are producing sorbents, these are special chemicals which deactivate the harmful chemicals in places of emergency situations. One of the companies provided 5 tons of sorbents, and I believe yesterday or the day before yesterday they took it there, and now they are liquidating the consequences. Even now that's happening. As to the sorbents, that's very important, because now, as it was in the past, they would put some sand on these leakages of refinery products, but that does not resolve the situation. It helps, there will be no fire there, but talking about deactivation, the sand doesn't help. So we need to use solvents, absorbents to liquidate the contamination. One more thing I would like to say. Again, it's about statement of Leshko. As if during the fire was having rest in Monaco somewhere, that is again absolutely lie. I don't know why he's talking about that. But from the 8th of June, when the fire started, until now, I am here, and I'm managing the processes which are subordinated to the ministry. I am keeping under control the situation. Our ecological inspectors report what's happening. We are monitoring what we can monitor according to our powers. The situation is under control, and I'm surprised that such politicians as Leshko make such statements which do not correspond to reality. So that is about the situation. And now we have developed some proposals which we sent on Friday to the Prime Minister on what we suggest to do so that in the future such situations do not happen, or so that the scale of fire or such disaster is smaller.
On the base of the State Service on Emergency, to set up a modern online system with round of early announcement and fighting fires where the facilities of high or hazardous. There should be sensors installed, and they inform right away the State Service of Emergency on fires. And they're good for them to go urgently and directly, because there are two fires to the fire which there were. Then an hour and a half they were trying to press down the fire using their own efforts, and that was a critical time, and firemen could come and and wouldn't have fire of this size. It's very important to set up such a system by the State Service of Emergency. And in France, French people came us, and they told, we are ready to help you to create that system. We will initiate that system because the fire, it harmed not only damage not only values that are there, but also a liquidation of that fire. It's more expensive, or consequences of influence on environment. If I told you that to the Prime Minister, we spent about 40 million to extinguish fire, then to clean we'll have to spend about several hundred millions to clean up and also to solve social consequences. So the question is from where to get that money. Also the state will provide that money and will liquidate consequences, but that should be paid from pockets of those enterprises because of whom we have such a situation, but businessmen that can take a lot of time. So insurance companies should cover that. For that, we need to raise minimal threshold payments of insurance companies that pay out in such situations. So any hazardous enterprises should have should be insured, but also they usually insure for minimal price. And for 3,400,000 it's almost nothing for such a size of fire and consequences. So that's why we need to raise minimal compulsory insurance volumes. I told you about solvents, and also on the level of legislation we should do that. And in EU countries they have such legislation that enterprises that are hazardous, they must have some stock of solvents at their sites, at their hazardous sites. So in case of a fire or accidents, for them to be able to use that solvent for immediate reaction and dealing with consequences. In the Cabinet of Ministers, we wanted to have a clear protocol of exchange of information and data under such circumstances, because it was very difficult for us to get information timely about the situation with the air, etc. And like write an official letter and somehow else, communication cannot happen like that between ministries, especially under such circumstances. So this is briefly everything. Thank you, Minister. We have time for one question, please. 2 questions in one. Look, 112 Ukraine. I start to the statement of Leshko, your reaction to that, because he told that his party will stand for your resignation, and also the second question, providing Mykola Shevchenko permission to use that land on which they have oil reserves. As to Leshko, as I told you, that is all that information that he mentioned yesterday, that I was not at the fireside, and that also that I was on vacations in Monaco and Nizza. That's not true. That's my reaction. It's completely not true. All this time I was in Kiev, and on the 12th I visited the fire, and I had an urgent a meeting with as to Zlochevsky, what are you talking about? What kind of plots of land? Just make your question in Kharkiv region, because he's wanted, and there is a statement that Mayor of Kharkiv gave him a permission. Mayor of Kharkiv doesn't have a power to provide permission for any natural resources. There's a state service, which is called the State Service on Geology and Resources. They issue permissions for making, for producing. So I don't know what it is about. those permits that will be provided to his companies one day, and I will review what's there, how they were issued, maybe you can review that process. So we studied that, and not only about Luchevsky, but in general. We make audit of all licenses, special permissions. So you know about that in situation. Probably there was some agreement, because when you need to have a special permission, you have a lot agree on some issues with local authorities. Probably they got that, but that is just a preparatory work, which may happen that it will not turn into special permissions. But maybe the company they do some work there, but later they provide a package of documents for resources, and then there will be this decision taken. But our approach is nothing will be issued to anyone. We'll sell everything on auctions. So there will be special, and then we will choose the best company, best conditions, how they will use deposits, and because we need to as soon as possible, we should get rid of energy dependence from Russia. That's why I put a lot of efforts to create favorable conditions for investors who could do reconnaissance, and who could produce local Ukrainian gas and oil. Because of a shortage of time, we have to finish our next briefing will be in 1 minute.